Welcome back to the channel. Let's take a look at infamous drug trafficker Barry Seal, also known as Ellis Mackenzie. Barry Seal is a pilot and an associate of drug lord Jorge Ochoa. After leaving South Caicos, an island south of the Bahamas, around 2 in the morning to avoid the Colombian Air Force, both men were fatigued. They had trouble navigating near daybreak because of dense fog and low-power radio beacons along the Colombian coast. When they finally recognized the Cartagena skyline, the aircraft made a left turn and crossed the coast a few miles east of the city. The Honduran pilot, Felix Dixon Bates, a Vietnam veteran and former commercial airline pilot, mentioned they would be flying over Jorge Ochoa's ranch and farm. He asked Mackenzie if he wanted to see it, to which Mackenzie agreed. They circled Hacienda Veracruz, waved to someone on the ground, and admired the ranch's paved 400-foot airstrip. However, they continued flying south along the Rio Magdalena towards Medellin, eventually landing on a 5,000-foot grassy jungle airstrip north of the city. Once the plane's engines were off, workers painted over its U.S. registration number, replacing it with the Colombian registration number of another Titan owned by the Ochoas that had been confiscated with cocaine in the Bahamas. This was done so the Ochoas could show the new Titan to the Colombian government and claim the seized plane was an imposter. Mackenzie examined the airstrip cut into the dense, wet vegetation, noting that rain would make it muddy and hazardous. Large pools of standing water from a recent downpour still dotted the runway. Nearby, a small plane was refueling while a tractor hauled duffel bags of cocaine out of the jungle. The refueling plane's pilot told Mackenzie he was headed to Andros Island in the Bahamas with 300 kilos of cocaine. Mackenzie and Bates then transferred to another small plane and flew to a complex of hangars on the outskirts of Medellin, which Bates explained was Jorge Ochoa's aircraft base, where he kept his private helicopter and jet. A driver picked them up and took them south into the mountains, past the Hotel Intercontinental, to a large estate with a winding driveway known as La Loma, the home of the Ochoas. Jorge Ochoa, Fabio Ochoa, Juan David Ochoa, Pablo Correa Arroyave, and Pablo Escobar greeted them and led them into a sitting area. Jorge Ochoa led the group in discussion. Bates filled in for Mackenzie as his translator because he didn't know Spanish. Ochoa greeted Mackenzie courteously and mentioned that the two had spoken over the phone earlier. That being said, Mackenzie said, "Yes, I'm happy to work with you." Mackenzie, although appearing to have a single mission, actually had two, with the second being a secret from the Colombians, as it would have endangered his life if they knew. In truth, Mackenzie was not his real name. He was Adler Berriman Seal, an informant for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. Born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Barry Seal was a larger-than-life character, weighing about 300 pounds and sporting big mutton-chop sideburns. He exuded an attitude of superiority and was known for his prowess as a pilot. He was heavy-set, charismatic, and a ladies' man, though he abstained from smoking and drinking, with flying and women being his main passions. Seal was highly regarded as one of the best pilots by those who knew him, having become one of the youngest pilots in the history of Trans-World Airlines at just 26 years old. Seal's appetite for excitement led him away from commercial airline flying. Having served in the U.S. Army Special Forces in the pre-Vietnam 1960s, and having been flying since the age of 15, he was no stranger to adventure. Seal was popular in high school and had many friends. Seal was a natural leader with a charming charisma. He craved more than the routine of suburban life and weekends watching LSU Tiger football games. Smuggling provided the thrill he sought. In 1972, at the age of 32, Seal faced his first arrest by customs in New Orleans. He was involved in a conspiracy to fly 7 tons of plastic explosives to anti-Castro Cubans in Mexico, unaware that the arms buyer was an undercover agent. Although the case was ultimately dismissed by the judge, the publicity surrounding it cost Seal his job with the airport. After being fired from TWA, Seal transitioned into the role of an airline broker, a term that thinly veiled his true occupation as an all-purpose smuggler. He began smuggling marijuana in 1976, assembling his own team of aviation mechanics and co-pilots. His operations frequently took him to Central and South America, where his piloting skills were highly valued. Seal's illicit activities came up with him in 1979, when Honduran authorities discovered an illegal weapon in his cockpit, leading to an 8-month prison sentence. During his way home, he met William Roger Reeves, another smuggler who introduced him to the Medellin cartel and the Ochoa family. Seal began flying cocaine for the Ochoas in 1981, developing direct relationships with Colombian drug dealers. One of his acquaintances was a woman who sometimes dressed as a nun. Later, she was replaced by Lito, an Ochoa distributor in Miami whose true name, like Seal's, was kept guarded. Seal interacted with Lito by dialing one of 3 numbers on his pocket phone pager. Seal had refined his smuggling activities to almost flawless by this time. He read testimony from high-profile federal drug conspiracy cases, carefully analyzed the mistakes made by other traffickers, and attended trials whenever he could, taking in the knowledge like a devoted seminar attendee. He created a nearly fail-safe system through this technique. His flights always departed from and returned to his bases in Louisiana under the cover of night, without lights, like all smugglers. Seal and his pilots utilized third-generation night vision goggles, each costing $5,000, which electronically amplified the available light from stars and the moon by 50,000 times. Over Colombia, Seal's planes exploited windows in Colombian airspace, specific periods when the military turned a blind eye, secured through $25,000 bribes. Seal's smugglers dropped to 500 feet and slowed to 120 knots upon re-entering U.S. airspace. They looked like helicopters taking off from Gulf of Mexico oil platforms on radar screens. Seal's planes would cross a radio checkpoint when they entered the United States. The mission was promptly terminated if the ground operator noticed an aircraft that was following after. If no such detection materialized, Seal's aircraft would follow radar beacons to drop locations in isolated Louisiana bayou regions. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. See y'all on the next one.